Hello everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let's continue with chapter 31, Fiscal Policy. Okay, so in the last class we discussed about the fiscal policy, which is a part of demand side policy, which means government tries to influence the aggregate demand and to get this to achieve certain macroeconomic objectives, for example, economic growth, inflation, unemployment, environmental pollution. Okay, so regarding all those economic performances, government tries to influence the aggregate demand with the help of taxation, government spending, and government borrowing. By adjusting them, the government can influence the aggregate demand and achieve these objectives. Okay, so mainly there are two policy instruments over here: taxation and government expenditure. And in some book you'll also find government borrowing as a tool, which is very similar to government expenditure. Okay. So next we discussed about the budget. Okay, so budget is like a financial plan for the government for the upcoming years. Okay, so it has two sides. One is revenue side, another is the expenditure side. Okay, which is also the policy instruments, right? The revenue is the taxation, and expenditure side is also there. So if the revenue side is less than the expenditure side, then what will happen? It will be known as a budget deficit. That means the government will be earning less money compared to the amount of money they are willing to spend, right? And budget surplus means that they will have more revenue than the spending. And that means they will have surplus amount of extra amount of money left over from all the tax revenue and all other kind of revenue, and they can use it in other purposes maybe, or store it for future use maybe. Okay, so yeah, you need these two definitions. And let's discuss. Government becomes very expanded, right? The government becomes very kind, because see what they're doing. It means the government will spend more and will take less tax to expand the aggregate demand. Okay, so most likely government will be heading towards a budget deficit, right? Because government will be spending more and earning less, so it may lead to budget deficit. Okay, so that's expansionary. Big government, like I was saying, that government's heart will be expanded. Okay, government will become very kind or generous towards the growth of the economy. To get the growth, government will allow more spending and less taxation. Okay, okay, we'll go through this in details later on. And contractionary is just the opposite. It means government will spend less and will take more as in terms of tax to reduce the aggregate demand, and most likely it will lead to a budget surplus. Okay. So what's happening here? That government will be uh, producing, government will be achieving other objectives, not economic growth maybe, because this low amount of spending and high amount of taxation will be inversely like affected to economic growth. But there are other objectives like maybe inflation. Okay, the contractionary fiscal policy is very effective for inflation. We'll be discussing that later on. Okay, okay. So got it. These are the two a kind of fiscal policy. So, and you already noticed that government cannot choose both of them, right? They need to choose among these two options, whether they need to go they need to choose expansionary or contractionary. It depends on what kind of objective they want to achieve, but they cannot do the same, right? Because see that they cannot increase or decrease at the same time, right? And again, they can uh, the government need to choose what is their objective, and based on that they will have to choose their policies as well. Okay. So one of the important economic performance or objective is that economic growth. Let's start with economic growth first. Okay, so economic growth is like what that means that we already discussed. There was a chapter on economic growth, right? Now over there we learned that when the national income increased or national output increased, that's known as economic growth. So what? So government will have to come design a policy by which national income or output will increase, right? So see what's here. So government can take expansionary fiscal policy. That means increasing government spending and reducing taxation. Okay, the equation of aggregate demand. Aggregate demand was equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Oops. Okay, so okay, that was these are the contents of aggregate demand or the total demand. See, we are talking about this G, that means government expenditure. So if government expenditure, that's a positive thing in the equation, right? So if government increases government expenditure, naturally it will also increase the aggregate demand. Right. And there is a multiplier effect on this one. Okay. You don't need to know this term multiplier, but just for explanation, I'm saying that yeah, if government increases spending, it will help the people of the country, so it will generate more aggregate demand, and also it will influence the consumption and investment or export as well, because government will be spending so that this increases. Okay, and because more investment or more export, these are very beneficial for the country. Okay, so these are the thing that will happen. Okay. Next, see that, and at the same time, there will be cut in the taxation. Okay, so cut in the taxation will lead to what? More consumption and more investment, right? Because see that it will generate more demand, because farms and household will have more money to spend. And extra government spending will result more economic growth. So see what's happening there. This policy is very helpful to increase the aggregate demand, because the mm, um, the fall in taxation will increase in consumption, increase investment. Okay, it will be very motivated for the household and the farms as well. And at the same time, government expenditure is also increasing, and so it may also encourage the exports as well. So see that what's happening, that the overall effect is that aggregate demand will increase. Okay. Okay. And next, let's discuss about the unemployment. So in unemployment, almost the same effect will be there. See, that expansionary fiscal policy can help to reduce unemployment. Increase in government expenditure and tax cut can stimulate demand. To meet this extra demand, farms will have to produce more. This means more stuff will be taken, and unemployment will fall. See, so it's very similar to economic growth. So as we are producing more, the more demand is there. So we need more employees. So there will be more employment, more hiring, and it will reduce the unemployment. Okay, next, let's discuss about the inflation. Okay, so in for inflation, government need to use contractionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy will worsen the inflation situation, but if the government wants to reduce inflation, keep inflation in control, then contractionary fiscal policy is a good way. We can see that inflation is being caused by growing aggregate demand. When the demand is too high, this is one of the reason of inflation. So to counter that, government can come up with contractionary policy. Measures should be taken to reduce demand. Government could cut its own spending and raise taxation. That means government will collect more taxation from the people or the farms, and they will be spending less. Okay, so it's like very opposite to the expansionary situation. Okay? The heart of the government is not expanding; it's contracting now. Okay, it's reducing. The government is becoming a bit miser, right? They're spending less and earning more. Okay, so government could cut its own government spending and raise taxation. Increase in tax will reduce disposable income and therefore reduce the aggregate demand. So see what's happening, that this cut in the government spending will reduce the aggregate demand, and this rise in taxation will reduce the disposable income for the people of the country. So it will they won't be able to afford, and they will spend less. Okay, same, it will be very discouraging for the farms, and they will be reducing the spending as well. Okay, so see that that's the situation. So this lowers consumption, lower investment, lower government expenditure will have an adverse effect on the aggregate demand. So this on the there will be a fall in aggregate demand. So that means people are not purchasing. The demand is very low. So farms will be or the sellers will be forced to reduce the price because people can't afford, right? So that's the situation. As a result, the price, this is an account where all the transaction related to export and import are recorded, right? So it may also face a problem, because when there is a high import in a country, that's a problem. When there is a high import compared to export, there will be a problem. So to solve this problem, government can come up with contractionary fiscal policy. So see that if there is a deficit in the current account, government can use contractionary fiscal policy. It will reduce aggregate demand as well as it will import, right? Okay, so again, see what happens in contractionary fiscal policy. This mm, this M, that means import, will be reduced. Okay, this high amount of tax will reduce the disposable income, so people won't be able to spend much. Right? So instead of purchasing foreign items, government and the people of the country may stick with the local low quality products, maybe because they cannot afford a high quality import. So it's not like that the local products are yeah, always low quality. I'm trying to say that usually and consumption has an inverse relationship with the environment. See that nowadays a government use fiscal policy to solve the environmental problem as well. Sometimes government impose different type of taxes to reduce the yeah, environmental damage. And sometimes government provides subsidies to reduce environmental damage. Okay, so see that what's happening, that as we said, that there is an inverse effect, right? That because when we increase our in consumption or production, what happens that um, um, there is an adverse effect on the environment. So to control that, government can impose taxes, which is a part of contractionary fiscal policy, right? Impose taxes on activities so that environmental pollution falls, or activities which are harmful for the environment, it falls, or it also encourages farms to shift to a more environment friendly method. Next, also the government can subsidies, which is a part of expansionary fiscal policy, right? So this expansionary, so by using the expansionary fiscal policy, government can also yeah, solve this problem, right? Uh, okay, the government can also solve this problem. See that what government can do. Government can provide subsidies, which is increase in the government expenditure. This will lead to a a better situation for the environment. Okay, and trade-off. This is an important topic. Trade-off. Okay, so this whole situation is discussed over here. So in the next class, we will again go through this. Okay, so what we discussed today is compiled in this chart. Okay, I'll upload it to the your portal, so you can get this. Okay. Next, see what's over there. The trade-off. Trade-off. Let's discuss about the trade-off. That's the last thing for today. Trade-off is an important thing. That see that when government is trying to achieve something, another thing is getting into trouble. See, government is trying to increase economic growth, or unemployment, solve the unemployment problem. So whenever government is solving this unemployment problem or government expenditure, economic growth, see, when expansionary fiscal policy is used, uh, economic growth and unemployment is solved. But see that inflation and balance of payment or the environment will be in trouble, right? So see, these are the trade-off. Okay, so that means when you're solving one problem, another problem will increase. Same goes for constructionary policy. When you are solving economic problem using constructionary fiscal policy, what's happening? You are solving the inflation or balance of payments problem, but at the same time, economic growth or unemployment is getting worse. Okay, so there's always a trade-off that if you solve one problem, another problem will rise. So government is in a very crucial situation, and it's very difficult to manage them. So that's all about demand management. Okay. So in the next class, we will again discuss this topic because this is a very important topic. Okay, okay, please let me know if you're facing a problem. Okay. Thank you, everybody. See you in the next class.